I'm Sarah, 28, and I thought my wedding day would be the happiest day of my life. Instead, I'm sitting in my dream venue surrounded by friends, but my parents' seats are empty. They chose my perfect sister, Emma, over me. Again. What started as a simple disagreement about wedding decorations turned into the revelation that shattered everything I believed about my family. The betrayal I discovered that night didn't just ruin my wedding. It destroyed the lies my parents had built our entire family on. Hey everyone, before we dive into this wild family drama, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If you've ever dealt with family favorites or wedding drama, hit that like button. Trust me, this story has more twists than a soap opera. And don't forget to subscribe, because family revenge stories like this don't come around every day, and you won't want to miss what happens when the truth finally comes out. Growing up, I always knew Emma was the favorite. She's 2 years older, and from the moment she could walk, she was destined for greatness. At least according to our parents, Richard and Linda Thompson. Emma was valedictorian, prom queen, got a full scholarship to Harvard, and married her college sweetheart in what my mother still calls the most elegant wedding she's ever attended. Meanwhile, I was the artsy one, the dreamer who went to community college for graphic design and worked my way up to running my own successful creative agency. But despite our different paths, I thought we were close. Emma and I texted regularly, shared inside jokes, and I genuinely believed she supported my relationship with Jake, my fiancé of 3 years. Jake's a contractor who built his business from nothing. He's kind, funny, and treats me like a queen. But to my parents, he wasn't professional enough compared to Emma's husband, David, who's a corporate lawyer. When Jake proposed last Christmas, I was over the moon. We started planning immediately, and I was so excited to share every detail with my family. That's when the problems started. My mother began every conversation about the wedding with "well" when Emma got married. Emma's wedding had been a understated affair at their country club. Elegant, tasteful, and what my mother called appropriately sophisticated. My vision was different. Jake and I wanted something that reflected us. A beautiful outdoor ceremony at a vineyard, string lights everywhere, a live band instead of a DJ, and a photo booth with props. We'd saved for 2 years to afford our dream wedding, and we were paying for everything ourselves. I thought my independence would make them proud. Instead, my mother's first comment was, "Don't you think it's a bit much?" Emma's wedding was so classic and timeless. When I showed her pictures of the venue, she wrinkled her nose. "It's very Pinteresty. Are you sure you want something so trendy? What will people think?" The criticism escalated over the months. Every choice I made was wrong. The flowers were too wild and bohemian. The menu was trying too hard to be unique. My dress, a stunning off-the-shoulder gown with delicate lace details, was too attention-seeking compared to Emma's simple sheath dress. The final straw came during the rehearsal dinner planning. I wanted to have it at our favorite restaurant, a cozy Italian place where Jake and I had our first date. My mother suggested we just do a simple family dinner at home like normal people. When I stood my ground, she said, the words that still echo in my head, "I just don't understand why you insist on making everything so flashy." Emma's wedding was perfect because it was appropriate. "This feels like you're showing off." "Showing off?" what I asked. "The fact that we worked hard and saved our money for something important to us? You're being dramatic, Sarah. We just want what's best for you. All this extravagance. It's not you. It's not our family. But it was me." Every detail of that wedding represented something Jake and I loved, something that mattered to us. I wasn't trying to outdo Emma. I was trying to celebrate the biggest day of my life in a way that felt authentic. 3 weeks before the wedding, the ultimatum came. My father called and said they'd discussed it, and they thought it would be best if we scaled back the celebration. They were willing to pay for a more appropriate reception if we canceled the vineyard and moved everything to the country club. When I refused, my mother got on the phone. Sarah, we're not comfortable attending something so ostentatious. It's not the image our family wants to project. If you insist on this circus, we won't be there. I thought she was bluffing. These were my parents. They'd been at every school play, every graduation, every major moment of my life. Surely they wouldn't actually skip my wedding over decorative choices. But as the wedding day approached, they didn't change their minds. Emma tried to play peacemaker, calling me the week before to say, maybe we can find a compromise. Mom and Dad really want to be there, but they're just concerned about appearances. Whose appearances? I asked. Mine or theirs. You know how they are, Sarah. Image matters to them. Can't you just tone it down a little? That's when it hit me. Emma wasn't trying to help. She was protecting her position as the golden child. She didn't want her little sister's flashy wedding to overshadow her perfect one. She was part of the problem. The night before my wedding, I sat in my hotel room looking at the seating chart with my parents' names still there, desperately hoping they'd show up. I called one last time. We've made our decision, my mother said quickly. We love you, but we can't support this spectacle. We'll celebrate with you privately when we're ready to have a conversation about what went wrong. What went wrong, I was getting married to the love of my life, having saved every penny to create something beautiful, and my own parents thought I was an embarrassment. The golden child had once again proven she was the only daughter worthy of their pride. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to let their absence ruin my day, but I also wasn't going to pretend this was okay. If they wanted to play favorites, fine. But I was done being the disappointment daughter who apologized for taking up space. I had no idea that by the end of my wedding day I'd discover just how deep their deception ran, and how Emma's perfect image was built on a foundation of lies that would bring their golden pedestal crashing down. My wedding day dawned absolutely perfect. Clear skies, gentle breeze, and the vineyard looked like something out of a fairy tale. Jake and I had decided we wouldn't let my parents' absence cast a shadow over our celebration. Our friends surrounded us with love. Jake's parents stepped in to fill some of the traditional roles, and my best friend Maya walked me down the aisle since my father had chosen his pride over his daughter. The ceremony was everything we dreamed of. As Jake and I exchanged vows under the pergola draped in white roses and string lights, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in months. This was right. This was us. And anyone who couldn't see the beauty in what we'd created together didn't deserve to be there. But life has a way of delivering revelations when you least expect them. During the cocktail hour, while I was taking photos with Jake's family, Maya approached me with a strange expression. Sarah, I need to talk to you privately. Now. She pulled me aside to a quiet corner of the garden, her face serious. I wasn't sure if I should tell you this today, but I think you need to know. My cousin Rebecca is a wedding planner. She handled a lot of high-end events in the city. She just told me something about Emma's wedding that doesn't add up. My stomach dropped. What do you mean Emma's perfect wedding that your parents always talk about? The one they paid for. Rebecca says it wasn't paid for by your parents at all. It was funded by David's family. His parents covered everything because Emma and David were both in law school and broke. But here's the kicker. Your parents took credit for it. They let everyone believe they'd given Emma this lavish gift while she was struggling financially. I stared at Maya, trying to process this information. That can't be right. My mother shows those photos to everyone, talks about how they invested in Emma's perfect day. There's more, Maya continued. Rebecca also mentioned that Emma had massive debt from law school, like 6 figures. David's parents didn't just pay for the wedding, they paid off her loans, too. Emma and David have been living in a house that David's trust fund bought. Your successful sister. She's been financially dependent on her in-laws this whole time. The ground felt unsteady beneath my feet. My parents had spent years holding up Emma's wedding as the gold standard, the example of what a proper wedding should look like. They'd criticized every aspect of my celebration because it was too much compared to Emma's tasteful affair. But Emma's wedding wasn't tasteful by choice. It was modest because she was broke, and even that modest celebration was paid for by someone else's family. How long has Rebecca known this? I asked. She said it's been an open secret in the wedding planning community for years. The Thompsons, your parents, have a reputation for taking credit for events they didn't pay for and criticizing other families' excessive spending. Rebecca said she always wondered why they talked so much about Emma's wedding when they clearly didn't have the means to have funded it themselves. As Maya walked away to give me space to process, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your beautiful wedding. I'm David's mother, Margaret. I wanted to reach out because I heard your parents didn't attend. I'm so sorry. No parent should miss their child's wedding over something so petty. For what it's worth, your celebration looks absolutely magical. Much more personal and joyful than most of the stuffy affairs we usually attend. I hope you know that a wedding should reflect the couple, not someone else's idea of propriety." I stared at the message, realizing that David's mother, the woman who had actually paid for Emma's perfect wedding, was congratulating me on the very celebration my own parents had deemed inappropriate. The irony was devastating. But the real revelation came 2 hours later during dinner. Emma showed up. She appeared at the edge of the reception area in a simple sundress, looking nervous and defeated. Several guests noticed her arrival, and I saw heads turning, whispers starting. Jake squeezed my hand as I stood up to face whatever dramatic scene was about to unfold. "Sarah, I need to talk to you," Emma said, as she approached our table. Her usual composed demeanor was cracking. "I know this is terrible timing, but I couldn't let this day end without. I need to tell you something." The entire reception seemed to pause as Emma stood there visibly struggling with whatever she was about to say. Jake stood beside me, his hand on my back, offering silent support. "Mom and Dad didn't just skip your wedding because it was too flashy," Emma began, her voice shaking. "They skipped it because they're broke, Sarah. They've been broke for years. They couldn't afford to give you what they pretended to give me, and they were too proud to admit it." The guests closest to us had gone completely silent, and I could see Maya standing nearby with her mouth open. "What are you talking about?" I asked, though pieces were already clicking into place. "My wedding, the one they're always bragging about, David's parents paid for everything. Not just the wedding. They paid off my student loans, bought our house, even cover our car payments. Mom and Dad have been living paycheck to paycheck since Dad's business started failing 5 years ago. They've been pretending to be this successful family while David's family subsidizes our entire lifestyle." The weight of this revelation hit me like a truck. So when they criticized my wedding for being too flashy, they were projecting their own shame about not being able to afford to help you. Instead of being honest about their financial situation, they decided to tear down your happiness to protect their image. And I let them. I've been letting them take credit for a life I don't even pay for myself. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I came here tonight because I realized something watching your ceremony from the parking lot. You built this beautiful celebration with your own money, your own choices, your own values. You're the successful one, Sarah. You're the independent one. And I've been letting our parents use my fake success to make you feel like a failure." The reception had essentially stopped. Guests were pretending to eat while openly eavesdropping on the most dramatic family revelation anyone had witnessed. Jake's hand found mine as Emma continued to unravel the lies that had shaped our family dynamic for years. "How long have you known?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emma wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. "I've always known, but I convinced myself it didn't matter. When David and I got engaged, his parents offered to help with the wedding. They're wealthy. His father owns 3 successful restaurants, and his mother inherited a real estate portfolio. To them, paying for our wedding was like buying a nice dinner out. She paused, looking around at the beautiful reception we'd created. But Mom and Dad were so excited about the wedding, so proud to tell their friends about the elegant affair they were hosting. When David's parents paid the vendors directly, Mom and Dad just never corrected people who assumed they were footing the bill. "And you never said anything I was weak," Emma admitted. "I liked being the golden child. I liked Mom bragging about my success even when it wasn't real. And honestly, I was embarrassed. Here I was, a Harvard Law graduate, and I couldn't afford my own wedding or student loans. David's family stepping in felt like charity, and letting Mom and Dad take credit felt like a way to save face. The manipulation was staggering. For years, I'd felt inadequate compared to Emma's achievements and our parents' obvious favoritism. Every family gathering had included updates about Emma's perfect marriage, her beautiful home, her successful career. Meanwhile, I'd been building my own business from scratch, paying my own bills, creating my own success. But somehow I was the disappointment. "Sarah, there's more," Emma continued, and I wasn't sure I could handle more revelations. "The reason they were so against your wedding being flashy wasn't just about money. It's because your wedding budget was bigger than what they could afford to contribute to mine, and they knew people would notice. They were afraid someone would ask questions about the discrepancy." Maya had moved closer, along with several of our closest friends who weren't even pretending to give us privacy anymore. This was my wedding reception, but it had turned into a public family intervention. "How much debt are they in?" I asked. Emma's face crumpled. "Dad's construction business has been losing contracts for years. He's too proud to adapt to new technologies or marketing strategies. They've been using credit cards to maintain their lifestyle, refinancing the house multiple times. Last month, David had to loan them money for their mortgage payment." The room started spinning. "David's been supporting them too. David's trust fund has basically been supporting our entire extended family for 3 years. Mom and Dad, me and David, even occasional help for our cousins when they needed it. And through it all, Mom kept bragging about how well she'd raised her daughters, how Emma's wedding was the perfect example of taste and class." I thought about all the times my mother had criticized my choices, all the snide comments about my trendy decorations and attention-seeking dress. She'd been attacking my financial independence because it highlighted her own financial failures. So when I said I was paying for my own wedding, I began. "It terrified them," Emma finished, "because it proved you didn't need their help. Help they couldn't give anyway. Your independence made their facade crumble. If their disappointment daughter could afford a beautiful wedding while their successful daughter needed charity, what did that say about their parenting?" About their judgment, Jake finally spoke up. "Emma, why are you telling us this now, on our wedding day?" Emma looked at him with something like respect. "Because I've been watching from the parking lot for 2 hours, and I've seen more genuine joy and love in your celebration than I had at my entire wedding. Sarah deserves to know the truth. She deserves to know that everything she's accomplished, her business, this wedding, her independence, is real success. Not the fake version I've been living, but I was still processing the deeper betrayal. They let me believe I was the failure. For years, Emma. They let me think I wasn't good enough, that I hadn't achieved enough, that I was embarrassing the family." "I know," she whispered, "and I let them. I was so scared of losing my position as the favorite that I never defended you. Even when I knew you were working twice as hard as me, earning everything yourself, building something real. The weight of years of manipulation was crushing. Every time I'd felt inadequate, every time I'd wondered why I wasn't enough, every family dinner where I'd felt like the disappointing daughter, it had all been based on lies designed to protect my parents' image and Emma's false pedestal. I need to pause this story for just a moment because I can see some of you commenting about how you've dealt with family dynamics like this. If you've ever been the scapegoat while someone else was the golden child, or if you've discovered that your family's success story was built on lies, hit that like button, because this story is about to take an even more dramatic turn. The revenge part is coming, and trust me, karma has a way of making things right. Don't forget to subscribe, because family justice stories like this one show that the truth always comes out eventually. Where are Mom and Dad right now? I asked. Emma looked uncomfortable. They're at home. They told everyone they had a family emergency and couldn't attend. They've been posting on Facebook about how proud they are of both their daughters, sharing old photos of my wedding and talking about how blessed they are. That was it. The final straw. While I was celebrating the biggest day of my life without my parents, they were online, maintaining their lie, probably getting sympathy from friends about their family emergency while basking in compliments about what wonderful parents they'd been. Do David's parents know about any of this? Jake asked. They know they've been supporting us, Emma said. But they don't know that Mom and Dad have been taking credit for their generosity, or that they've been using that false credit to criticize Sarah. Margaret and Robert think highly of you, Sarah. They've always said you seemed more grounded and independent than most young people they meet. As Emma spoke, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt and confusion were transforming into something else, clarity. For the first time in years, I could see my family dynamics clearly, without the fog of manipulation and lies. I wasn't the disappointment. I was the threat. My real success threatened their fake success, so they'd spent years trying to diminish my achievements and make me doubt myself. But the night wasn't over, and neither was this revelation. Because as Emma stood there confessing years of deception, my phone rang with a call that would turn this family drama into something much bigger. The call was from my Aunt Carol, my father's sister, who lived 3 states away. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe to accept the call. "Sarah, honey, I just saw your wedding photos on Instagram, and they're absolutely gorgeous." Aunt Carol's voice was warm and excited. "I'm so sorry I couldn't make it. You know how work is. But I wanted to call and congratulate you. Where are your parents in the photos I've been scrolling, and I don't see them anywhere?" I looked at Emma, who had gone pale then, at the crowd of guests who were now openly listening to our family drama unfold in real time. "They didn't come, Aunt Carol?" I said simply. There was a pause. "What do you mean they didn't come to their daughter's wedding? They said it was too flashy, that it didn't represent our family values." Another pause, longer this time. "Sarah, that's absurd. Your wedding looks absolutely beautiful, classic and elegant and fun. What family values could possibly object to that?" Then her voice changed, becoming more serious. "Honey, has your father been acting strange lately? Because I got a weird call from him last month asking if I could loan them money. He said it was for some business expansion, but the way he was talking..." My heart stopped. What kind of loan? $20,000? He was very secretive about it, said it was for a new contract that required upfront materials costs. But Sarah, your father has never asked me for money in his entire life. I was worried something was seriously wrong. I looked at Emma, who was now sitting down heavily in one of the reception chairs. "Did you give it to him?" I told him. "I'd need to see the business paperwork first, and he got angry and hung up on me. I've been worried about him ever since. And your mother hasn't returned any of my calls." The pieces were falling into place with devastating clarity. My parents weren't just broke. They were desperately broke to the point of trying to borrow money from family members they barely spoke to. Their absence from my wedding wasn't about family values or image. It was about the desperate fear that someone would notice they couldn't afford to give me a wedding gift, couldn't afford new clothes for the occasion, couldn't afford to maintain their facade in front of my successful friends and Jake's family. "Aunt Carol, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course, honey. What do you know about Emma's wedding, about who paid for it?" There was a long silence. "Oh, Sarah, you've figured it out, haven't you? Some of it. But I need to know everything." Aunt Carol sighed deeply. Your parents called me after Emma's wedding, going on and on about how proud they were, how they'd given her such a beautiful celebration. But I knew they couldn't afford it. I work in banking, honey. I know what your father's business income looks like. I also know Margaret and Robert Thompson through some mutual friends, and everyone knows they paid for that wedding. Your parents have been living a lie for years. How long have you known? Since right after Emma got married. Margaret mentioned it at a charity function. Not gossiping, just casual conversation about how much she enjoyed planning the wedding with Emma. She had no idea your parents were taking credit for it. I never said anything because, well, what was I supposed to do? Call your parents liars. Emma was crying openly now, and several guests had moved closer, forming a protective circle around us. Jake's mother, Sandra, approached with tissues and a look of maternal concern that my own mother should have been showing. There's something else, Sarah, Aunt Carol continued. Your father's been telling people that your wedding was inappropriate and that you'd refused their financial help out of stubbornness. He's been painting you as the difficult daughter who rejected their generosity. The manipulation was even worse than I'd thought. Not only had they skipped my wedding, but they were now telling their version of events to make me look like the problem. In their narrative, they were the generous parents of an ungrateful daughter, rather than the broke parents of an independent daughter who didn't need their help. Aunt Carol, I'm going to call you back later. There's something I need to do. After hanging up, I looked around at my wedding reception, my beautiful, self-funded, personally designed celebration, and made a decision that would change everything. I'm going to their house, I announced to the group. Right now. Sarah, no, Emma said immediately. Not on your wedding day. Don't let them ruin this. They're not ruining it, I said, feeling a strange calm descend over me. They're about to face the consequences of their choices. Jake stepped forward. If you're going, I'm going with you. Me too, said Maya. And me, added Sandra, Jake's mother. I've heard enough. Someone needs to stand up for you. But Emma shook her head frantically. Sarah, please. If you confront them now, if you expose everything, it'll destroy them. Dad's business, their social standing, everything they've worked for. Everything they've worked for, I repeated incredulously. Emma, they've worked for a lie. They've spent years making me feel inadequate while living off of David's family's money and claiming credit for generosity they never showed. They skipped my wedding to protect their fake image. But they're still our parents, Emma pleaded. Parents who chose their pride over their daughter's wedding day, Sandra said firmly. Sarah, honey, some bridges need to be burned. Some people need to face consequences. I looked at Emma, my sister, who had lived in comfort while I struggled to build my own success, who had let our parents use her fake achievements to diminish my real ones, who had known the truth for years and said nothing until now. Emma, you can come with us and finally stand up for what's right, or you can stay here and keep protecting the lie. But I'm done being the scapegoat for this family's dysfunction. As we prepared to leave my wedding reception for the most important confrontation of my life, I realized that this moment wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. It was about refusing to be diminished by people who had chosen deception over integrity. The golden child facade was about to crumble, and this time, the truth would be witnessed. The drive to my parents' house felt surreal. Here I was in my wedding dress, driving through suburban streets with my new husband, my best friend, my mother-in-law, and my sister, all united in purpose like some kind of justice league. Emma had ultimately decided to come, though she spent the entire 15-minute drive trying to convince me to handle this gently. They've been backed into a corner, she kept saying. People do desperate things when they're desperate. People do honest things when they're honest, I replied. And they stopped being honest a long time ago. When we pulled into their driveway, I could see the living room light on. Through the window, I glimpsed my father in his recliner, probably watching TV as if this was any ordinary Saturday night, as if his youngest daughter hadn't just gotten married without him. I rang the doorbell, and when my mother opened the door, her face went through a series of expressions I'll never forget: surprise, confusion, guilt, and finally defensive anger. "Sarah, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at your event?" "My wedding, Mom. The word you're looking for is wedding." She looked past me to see our little group assembled on her front porch. "What is this? Why is everyone here? We need to talk, all of us, right now." My father appeared behind her, and his face immediately showed he knew this wasn't a social visit. "Sarah, if you've come here to cause a scene." "Dad, I've come here for the truth." We moved into their living room. The same room where I'd shown them my wedding plans months ago, where they'd criticized every choice I'd made. Looking around now, I noticed things I'd never paid attention to before: the furniture that was starting to show wear, the dated decorations, the absence of the little luxury touches that had always seemed normal in our house growing up. First, I said, standing in the center of the room while everyone else found seats, "I want you to look at me. Really look at me. I'm wearing my wedding dress, the one you called too attention-seeking. I just had the most beautiful wedding ceremony, surrounded by people who love and support me, and you weren't there." My mother's chin lifted defiantly. "We told you our feelings about that spectacle." "Stop," I said firmly. "Just stop. I know about the money, Mom. I know Emma's wedding was paid for by David's family. I know you've been broke for years. I know Dad tried to borrow money from Aunt Carol. And I know you've been lying to everyone about it." The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face went red, then pale. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. "How dare you come into our home and accuse us of—" My father started. "Of what, Dad? Lying? Because that's exactly what you've been doing." I turned to Emma. "Tell them what you told me." Emma looked miserable, but she spoke up. "I told Sarah the truth about our finances, about David's family supporting us, about you taking credit for their generosity." "Emma," my mother gasped, "how could you betray us like this?" "Betray you?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mom, you betrayed me. You let me believe I was the family disappointment while knowing that Emma's success was subsidized by her in-laws. You criticized my achievements while living off someone else's money. You missed my wedding because you were too proud to admit you couldn't afford to keep up with your fake image." My father stood up, his face angry. "You have no idea what we've sacrificed for this family, what we've been through. The economy, the business challenges." "Then why didn't you tell me?" I interrupted. "Why didn't you say, 'Sarah, we're struggling financially. We can't contribute to your wedding, but we're so proud of what you've accomplished on your own. Why did you make me feel like a failure instead?" "Because—" my mother started, then stopped. "Because you couldn't handle the truth, Sandra," Jake's mother said quietly. "You couldn't handle that your disappointment daughter was more successful than your golden child. It threatened everything you'd built your identities on." My mother turned on Sandra. "I don't know who you think you are, but this is a family matter." "I'm Sarah's family now," Sandra replied calmly. "And family shows up. Family doesn't skip weddings over pride." Maya pulled out her phone. "Sarah, there's something else. While we were driving over here, I checked your parents' Facebook pages. They've been posting about a family emergency that prevented them from attending your wedding. They're getting sympathy from dozens of people." She showed me the screen. My mother's post read, "Heartbroken to miss our Sarah's special day due to an unexpected family crisis. Sending love and prayers to our beautiful daughter and her new husband. Sometimes life doesn't go as planned, but family love endures." The comments were full of heart emojis and messages like, "So sorry for your loss," and "Family comes first. Sarah will understand. A family emergency," I said, my voice deadly quiet. "You told people there was a family emergency." My mother's face crumpled. "We couldn't tell them the truth." What were we supposed to say that we didn't approve, that we couldn't afford? "You could have said nothing," I exploded. You could have just not gone and kept your mouth shut, but instead you created a lie that makes me look like an unsympathetic daughter and yourselves look like victims. We are victims, my father shouted back. Victims of an economy that destroyed my business. Victims of circumstances beyond our control. No, Dad. You're not victims. You're people who made choices. You chose to live beyond your means. You chose to take credit for money you didn't spend. You chose to tear down my achievements to protect your egos. And you chose to miss my wedding rather than face reality. Emma was crying again, but I wasn't done. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to post a correction on Facebook. You're going to tell the truth. That there was no family emergency that you chose not to attend because of a disagreement about wedding styles. And you're going to stop telling people that Emma's wedding was your generous gift. We can't do that, my mother whispered. It would ruin everything. Everything was already ruined, Mom. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. The real revelation was still coming, and it would change our family forever. The final blow came from an unexpected source. As we sat in that living room, the tension thick enough to cut Jake's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and frowned. It's my dad, he said to me. He's supposed to be at the reception cleanup. Why would he be calling? Jake answered the phone, and I watched his expression change from confusion to shock to something like amazement. Dad, slow down. What did you say about the construction permit? My father went rigid in his chair. Emma looked between Jake and our dad with growing alarm. Okay, we'll be back soon. Don't let him leave. Jake hung up and looked directly at my father. Dad's talking to someone at the reception who says he hired Thompson Construction 3 years ago for a basement renovation. Apparently, there's a problem with the permit paperwork that's been discovered during a home sale. The buyer's inspection found that the electrical work was never properly permitted or inspected. The blood drained from my father's face. Dad, I said slowly, please tell me you didn't cut corners on permit paperwork to save money. The silence was damning. Richard, my mother whispered, what did you do? The permit process was taking too long and the client was pressuring me to finish. I thought I could go back and file the paperwork later, but then the permit fees went up and we were already operating at a loss on that job. Emma stood up abruptly. Dad, do you realize what this means? If there are unpermitted renovations that don't meet code and something happens, a fire, an accident, insurance issues, you could be liable for hundreds of thousands of dollars. David works in liability law. This is exactly the kind of thing that destroys businesses and families. But Jake wasn't done with his revelations. There's more. The guy at our reception, he's a building inspector now. He's been wondering about this permit issue for years, but never had cause to investigate. But hearing about Thompson Construction tonight made him curious, so he pulled up the records on his phone. My father looked like he was about to be sick. How many jobs, Dad? I asked. How many times did you skip proper permits to cut costs? The answer when it came was devastating, maybe a dozen over the past 3 years. We were bleeding money and the permit fees and inspection delays were killing us on bids. This wasn't just financial struggle. This was fraud. This was the kind of corner cutting that could result in legal consequences, insurance investigations, and the complete destruction of any remaining business credibility. Emma was pacing now, her law training kicking in. Dad, you need to get ahead of this. You need to contact every client, disclose the permit issues, and work with them to get everything properly inspected and brought up to code. If you don't, and this inspector decides to investigate further, we don't have the money, my father said weakly. The cost of bringing everything up to code, the potential fines, the legal fees. We'd lose the house. And there it was. The real reason they'd missed my wedding wasn't about pride or image or family values. It was because they were facing potential financial and legal ruin and they couldn't bear to sit through my celebration knowing their world was about to collapse. How long have you known about this? I asked. The permit issues a few months. But I kept thinking I could fix it quietly, maybe catch up on the paperwork without anyone noticing. And you never thought to tell Emma or ask David for legal advice or be honest with your family about what you were facing. My mother spoke up, her voice broken. We were ashamed, Sarah. Everything was falling apart, and we couldn't bear for you to see us as failures. Especially not you with your successful business and your beautiful wedding that you paid for yourself. You were everything we wished we could still be. The irony was staggering. While they'd been criticizing my wedding for being too flashy, they'd been facing potential legal consequences for their business practices. While they'd been holding up Emma as the successful daughter, they'd been hiding problems that could destroy everything. So you missed my wedding because you were too proud to face your problems, and now you're facing problems that are going to require exactly the kind of family support you've been too proud to ask for. I looked around the room, at Emma crying at my parents, looking older and more defeated than I'd ever seen them at Jake and Sandra and Maya, who had witnessed this entire family meltdown. Here's what's going to happen, I said, and my voice was calmer now, more resolved. Dad, you're going to call David tomorrow morning and get legal advice about how to handle the permit situation properly. You're going to be completely honest about the scope of the problem. Emma, you're going to support that conversation and stop pretending your family is perfect. I turned to my parents. And you two are going to learn how to be honest. With yourselves, with your daughters, and with everyone else. No more fake Facebook posts about family emergencies. No more taking credit for money you didn't spend. No more making one daughter feel inferior to protect the other's image. What about us? My mother asked quietly. What about our relationship with you? I considered the question carefully. That depends on whether you choose to be real family or continue being fake family. Real family shows up for each other even when things are messy. Real family doesn't miss weddings over pride. Real family doesn't lie to protect their image. I looked at my wedding dress, now wrinkled from this confrontation, and realized something important. I'd spent years trying to earn their approval, trying to measure up to their version of success. But their version of success had been a lie from the beginning. I need to get back to my reception now, I said, taking Jake's hand. My real family is waiting for me. As we walked toward the door, Emma called out, Sarah, wait. I want to come with you. I want to celebrate your wedding the way I should have from the beginning. I turned back to look at my parents sitting in their living room, surrounded by the ruins of their facade. You're welcome to join us too, if you're ready to be real. They didn't come. But for the first time in years, their absence felt like their loss, not mine. Back at the reception, our friends had kept the party going, and when we arrived with Emma in tow, the celebration took on a different energy. Emma publicly apologized to me, and Jake telling our friends that she'd been wrong to let family drama overshadow such a beautiful day. Maya grabbed the microphone from the DJ and announced that the bride and groom had handled some family business and were back to celebrate properly. The cheer that went up from our friends was deafening. As Jake and I had our first dance as a married couple, finally, properly without the shadow of family disappointment hanging over us, I realized that sometimes justice isn't about revenge. Sometimes it's about refusing to accept lies as love, manipulation as family loyalty. The golden child pedestal had crumbled, the fake family success had been exposed, and the parents who chose pride over presents had lost their daughter's wedding day forever. But I'd gained something more valuable, the certainty that my worth wasn't determined by their approval and my success wasn't diminished by their deception. Looking at all of you watching this story, I have to ask, have you ever discovered that your family dynamics were built on lies? Have you been the scapegoat child who finally realized the golden child's success was fake? Drop a comment and let me know your experiences with family karma, because sometimes the truth really does set you free, even when it hurts. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family drama stories. Share this with anyone who's ever felt like the family disappointment, because sometimes we need to hear that our real achievements matter more than fake family approval. Thank you for watching my family's messy truth unfold. Remember, life has a way of revealing what's real and what's pretend. And choosing authenticity over image is always worth it, even when it costs you relationships that were based on lies. Stay strong, stay real, and remember that the family that shows up for you is the family that matters whether they share your DNA or not.